Welcome to Strong, Confident, and Informed, the podcast where we go beyond surface level fitness advice and actually help you understand what's driving your results. I'm Danielle Lemoyne, an online fitness coach who helps women build strength, lose fat, and most importantly, stay consistent without constantly starting over. Today's episode is one that I think a lot of people need to hear, especially if you constantly feel like you're trying harder, doing more, adding more, and still not getting the results you want. Because sometimes the problem isn't that you're not doing enough. Sometimes the problem is that you're doing too much intensity, too much pressure, too much inconsistency from constantly swinging between extremes. And I see this all the time in the fitness space. People think results come from doing the most, being exhausted after every workout, trying harder every week, cutting our calories lower, adding more cardio in, and constantly pushing ourselves. And while effort absolutely matters, more is not always better. Better is better. A lot of people are stuck in the cycle of go hard, burn out, fall off, and restart. And because they're always either all in or completely off track, they never actually stay consistent long enough to see what works. One of the biggest mindset shifts I try to teach clients is this. You do not need to earn your results through exhaustion. You need to build them through your consistency. And consistency usually looks a lot less dramatic than people expect. Sometimes doing less looks like training 3 days instead of 6, walking more instead of crushing yourself with cardio, simplifying your nutrition, focusing on your recovery, and sticking to basics long enough for them to work. And honestly, that usually works better than constantly trying to overhaul your life every Monday. I think social media has convinced people that if your routine doesn't look intense, it's not effective. But the routines that actually create long-term results are usually pretty simple. They're not easy, but they're simple. Because the goal isn't to see how much you can survive. The goal is to create something you can sustain. And those are two very different things. I also think a lot of women are operating from this mindset of, if I'm not pushing harder, I'm falling behind. So they start to add more workouts, they cut their calories lower, they start to feel guilty instead of resting, they ignore their recovery, and they're constantly feeling like they should just be doing more. Meanwhile, their stress is high, their energy is low, and their body feels exhausted. And then they wonder why their cravings are increasing, their workouts feel really hard, or they can't stay consistent, and they keep falling off. Because your body isn't a machine. It responds to stress, and fitness is stress too. Even good stress still requires recovery. Now, this doesn't mean never challenge yourself, okay? That's not what I'm saying here. You absolutely need progression and effort. But there's a difference between productive challenge and constantly redlining yourself. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that they're doing it anymore because they've normalized feeling exhausted all the time. They've normalized always feeling behind or feeling sore, feeling guilty, and always feeling like they should be doing more. And eventually, fitness stops becoming something that supports their life. And it starts becoming another source of stress inside it. And honestly, this is where I think a lot of women quietly lose trust in themselves because they set these huge expectations. They tell themselves that it's time to go all in and I'm going to be super disciplined. I'm not missing my workouts. I'm cutting everything out. And for a week or two, maybe they can hold that pace, but eventually real life catches up. Work gets stressful, energy drops, something comes up unexpectedly, and then we miss a workout. Then we eat off plan. And instead of adjusting, we spiral because the plan was built around intensity instead of sustainability. And this is something I really want people to understand. If your routine only works when life is calm, structured, and perfect, it's probably not a realistic routine because life is not always calm. There's gonna be stressful weeks, you're gonna have a busy season, you're gonna have low energy days, and unexpected things come up. And your routine needs enough flexibility to survive those moments. This is why I care so much more about repeatability than perfection. Because the people who get the best long-term results are usually not the people having the most perfect weeks. They're the people who keep showing up imperfectly instead of disappearing every time things get hard. And honestly, that's a skill. Learning how to adjust without quitting is a skill. Learning how to keep going without needing everything to be perfect is a skill. Learning how to stay consistent without constantly starting over is a skill. And I think this is where doing less can actually become incredibly powerful. Because when your routine is more manageable, you're more likely to repeat it. You're going to recover better, you're going to feel less overwhelmed, you start to build more confidence, and you stop feeling like fitness is taking over your entire life. And that matters because fitness should support your life, not consume it. Now, I also want to touch on something important here because I know some people hear messages like this and immediately think, should I just do the bare minimum? No, that's not what this means. Doing less doesn't mean not challenging yourself. It means removing unnecessary pressure, unnecessary volume, and unnecessary chaos. It means focusing on the things that actually move the needle instead of constantly chasing more. Because honestly, a lot of people are majoring in the minors. They're worrying about tiny details, supplements, their perfect meal timing, advanced workout techniques, while they actually struggle with the basics. And the basics are still what creates your results. Those consistent workouts, eating enough protein, your sleep, your hydration, just your regular movement every day, your recovery, managing your stress, and following through more often than not. That's the stuff that matters. Not doing the hardest possible version of everything. And I'll be honest, some of the clients I've seen get the best results over time are not the ones who came in super intense. They're the ones who learned how to become steady. They stopped constantly restarting. They stopped trying to overhaul their life overnight. They stopped relying on motivation, and they started focusing on consistency. And that's not always exciting, right? But it works. I also think people underestimate how much recovery impacts your results because recovery is not lazy. Recovery is part of the process. Your body changes after your workout, not during it. The workout is the stimulus, but recovery is where your adaptation happens. So if you're constantly undereating, you're undersleeping, you're overtraining, feeling stressed and exhausted, your body has a much harder time adapting positively. And again, this is why more isn't always better. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is taking a rest day or going for a walk instead of a hard workout, simplifying your nutrition and stop trying to make up for weekends. Focus on your consistency instead of your intensity. And honestly, one of the biggest signs that your approach might be too much is when you can't sustain it. If you're constantly falling off, restarting, feeling overwhelmed, or feeling like you need breaks from your routine, that's feedback. Not failure, feedback. And instead of responding to that feedback by trying to push harder, sometimes the better question is, what would this look like if it was actually sustainable? That question changes everything because sustainable doesn't mean easy, okay? It means repeatable. And I think this is the biggest thing I want you to take from this episode. You do not need to constantly prove yourself through exhaustion. You do not need to earn your results by running yourself into the ground. You need a routine that you can follow consistently enough for your body to actually respond to it. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed lately, or like you're constantly trying harder but not moving forward, I want you to ask yourself, do I actually need to do more? Or do I need to become more consistent with less? Because sometimes fewer workouts done consistently, simplifying your nutrition, better recovery, less all or nothing thinking creates far better results than constantly chasing intensity. Now, if this episode resonated with you, come hang out with me on Instagram at DL Fitness Coaching. Send me a message and let me know what landed for you. And if you're ready for support applying this in your own routine, you can find all the details about my coaching in the show notes. Thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.